Hi, and welcome to Coach Talk. This is season 2, discussing relationships. I'm Fahima, a qualified life coach and NLP practitioner. I'm going to be discussing relationships because I think that we have a misconception as to how we live today. And relationships is part of that journey, which is continuous in many stages in our lives, and it does vary. I've invited various guests to the show, giving their insight and awareness. And they come from different backgrounds with different ideas to share so that everyone will have awareness and can take away some information to either improve your current existing relationship, to get you to maybe a better relationship, or to even just have a better understanding to relating to relationships. So that it's not just for couples, it's also for siblings, for parents, for colleagues at work. Relationships is an important journey in our life, and we need to have good relationships in order to build better lifestyles. And with me today, I have a very, very special guest, Mr. Bilal Ali Hugh, who's a psychotherapist and a broadcast journalist. Hi Bilal, how are you?
I'm good, how you doing?
How are you feeling?
Excellent. It's really nice to come here and join you.
I'm so
on
privileged to have you here.
And for the second series, and well done to you.
Thank you so much. No, I'm really, really happy that you could join me today. I know you're very busy and your time is precious, but I know you have so much valuable information. And today we're going to be discussing a little bit about the psychological dynamics of intimacy. Now, tell me a little bit more about that, because I asked you to sort of pick a title for me on this one. Mm-hmm. So what made you decide on this particular subject?
Because the time that we live in, 21st century,
Yes.
relationships, marriages are really, in terms of intimate relationships, in terms of romantic relationships,
Yes.
it's really challenging. We have like a divorce phenomena in the mainstream, in religious communities, in traditional communities, and right across the board, middle class, working class, underclass.
Absolutely.
Major challenges in terms of love, romance, intimacy. So it's something that I'm fascinated by, and something that I continuously find that people seek help in this area. It's a never-ending area. It's like dieting. It's one of those areas that never go away.
No, it doesn't go, and it's constantly changing. So when you say challenges, what is the challenges that you think that's coming now, which is a little bit more testing for couples to overcome?
Lack of motivation in terms of duration of the relationship. Many people find the long haul difficult.
Yes.
So they become addicted. I use that word, addicted to the high, the initial high.
Yes.
Because when people fall in love, there's a lot of psychological literature out there on this, but it does suggest that the body releases cortisol, and
Absolutely.
it mimics the high of a cocaine rush.
Absolutely,
So
yes.
some people get addicted to that part of the
Yes,
process.
yes.
But then the aspect of commitment taking over and joining the romance and being like symbiotic, affecting the romance, and the romance affecting the commitment, there's a breakdown there. And it seems that people get caught in that first stage of the high.
Absolutely, and obviously we want that high consistently. We want it to maintain, we want it to be long term.
We crave the rush.
We crave that rush. And maybe, with partnerships, we go through different stages in our lives together and individually. Mm-hmm. There's lots of factors around us that affect us, not just our own stages, but throughout a relationship, whether they're married or not. Whatever happens in that relationship affects the individual.
Definitely.
And that obviously reflects
definitely.
in the communication, it reflects on how they look at each other again after so many years perhaps. And there's so
People
much
grow and
to talk
evolve
about.
as well.
Absolutely.
And are you growing and evolving
together?
Even if with your differences, with your uniqueness, but is there an evolution taking place that can be compatible?
Exactly. It's not about even having that growth to be in the same sort of direction or a growth to be sort of similar.
Yeah.
It's about the compatibility. And that's why I find a lot of couples that come to me when I do couples coaching, that there's always one that's lacking in that growth mindset, for example. Mm-hmm. And after a while, they might accept it, but then it just fades. And that's when the relationship is in turmoil. But the other thing is also that people don't address it early enough. And they don't actually air out their issues. And we talk about communication. I mean, what is that?
Yeah.
We need to talk about communication, really. It's not just verbal.
In fact, most communication is non-verbal.
Absolutely.
But you bringing it back to that point about, that people go for couples counseling, for example, or intervention or help or assistance, oftentimes when it's too late. So there's, for example, statistics out about people who go for couple counseling at a particular national couples organization. They say it's not looking good, you know, in terms of statistically, do people make it after the counseling?
Yes.
But the key, from my point of view, the variable is that when have people chosen to seek to address the issue?
Exactly.
It's like an illness.
Absolutely.
For example, somebody could have an episode of hearing voices. They can hallucinate in some way and have a short bout of psychosis. Yeah. If they seek help, the chances of them recovering is very, very strong if they seek help in the initial early stages.
Yes.
There's treatment available,
Exactly.
support systems, mechanisms, interventions
And you're more
available.
willing as well, right?
Right. But if that's not addressed, it can start, hearing voices can start to become part of the person's personality.
Oh my gosh,
And then
I hear that
and then
all the
the
time.
chances of them having a full recovery or leading a normal life is not likely. It's not probable.
That's why people say, oh, counseling, coaching, it doesn't help. Do you know why? Because it's the time in which you reached it.
Exactly.
That's where people need to really understand.
And
If
the
there's a
expectations as well.
Yeah.
Do you think this third party is going to solve your problems, or is their role to facilitate you two as a union, the two of you as a union, solving your problems?
Well, that's why I think couples coaching needs to be aired out even more, because I know how powerful that is. It's not about having these really deep issues, but it's about having any issue, and especially initially, where you think that, you know, oh, it doesn't really matter, but it does matter. Because if there's a slight inkling that things are not sitting with you comfortably, then there is something like couples coaching that you can come to, and you can just sit there and have a conversation, and you will be surprised at how powerful it is in actually maintaining it long term. And the other thing I also want to talk about, because we know we've discussed this before, you and me, about the concepts of the love language. I know a lot of people are aware of these different love languages, and we don't understand, you know, how people love and receive love. And there's, you know, do you want to go back more into it, because you obviously know more about it, like, you know, the quality time, the words of affirmation, the gifts, the acts of service, the touch, and physical sort of like contact. People's like, you know, people want one or more of the other. I personally want it all. So what happens in that
Ain't nothing
case?
wrong with that. People want their cake and eat it too, and some people say, well, cake is for eating, right?
Exactly. So, like, you know, what do you do, like, in those sort of circumstances? Again,
Well, no,
like
but
you were
you
saying.
mentioned communication, so let's look at communication.
Okay.
The vast majority of human communication takes place non-verbally.
Right.
There's figures from 70%, 80%, 90%,
Yeah.
but whatever. But we'll agree the vast majority is not in what is verbally articulated, but what in terms of the unspoken. The
Yeah.
unspoken is deeper than the spoken.
Yeah.
So the idea of, that was developed by a counsellor is that there are love languages in this, that people communicate through various mediums.
Yes.
Their love.
Yes.
Their value for that
Yes.
person romantically. And as you said, there's various methods, but where the conflict can take place is if you're unaware. This is the idea. The concept is that if
Right.
you're not aware of your partner, your wife, your husband's love language, you could be making the effort and actually, you're making effort and you're putting something you're investing, but your investment is not received, because it's almost like you're investing in the wrong shares, stocks, bonds, or
Absolutely.
whatever the case may be. So for an example could be like, for example, a wife's love language in terms of what she receives and how she appreciates is quality time.
Yes.
But a husband could spend a lot of time working, providing a nice environment.
And that's
buying
his way
gifts.
of showing love.
That's
Yeah.
his way of showing gifts.
Yeah.
But really,
What she wants.
could be quality time, it could be touch.
Yes. Actually, that's
Cuddles and touch.
that's very common. What you just
Exactly.
said as an example is the realistic thing about what women normally want and what do they receive, and what the man usually says, oh, you know, but I'm doing this, I'm doing that. So it does really, it needs to be taken into consideration. as to
Definitely,
understand.
it's a good matrix to understand the dynamics in terms of in psychological intimacy in relationships, because people can reach that place in a relationship where I'm talking in therapeutically, not talking professionally, but just when guys talk, say, look man, I'm doing everything.
yeah.
I mean, I'm working all the
Exactly.
hours that God sends.
Exactly.
I haven't really had a good night's sleep and God knows when. But look, I bought her a new car. I'm paying for the car. I've provided for the home. I made it so that she doesn't have to work more than part-time. I'm doing all these things, but I'm getting this cold shoulder, I'm getting this attitude, I'm getting whatever it is that the person's getting, but this negativity, and they just can't understand it. But it's about, are you spending it? Maybe taking that time out from your work schedule, not doing the overtime, and actually saying, you know what, I'm gonna clear the decks and make it just about us,
Right.
that could be more valuable than the monthly payment on the car. But if you don't see it
Absolutely.
that way, you're saying, well, I am working hard, but it's not always about
Yeah.
working hard, it's about working smart,
Yes.
so that you're
I
kind of
agree
pinpointing
with
your
that.
efforts.
I totally agree with that. So coming back to the psychological dynamics of intimacy, what is that to you?
To me, that is the glue. It's the glue that keeps people together. It's the glue that initially takes place when there's something of a spark, what people call falling in love or becoming
Okay,
attracted.
so that
It starts from
initial-
attraction to love to a bonding, and then the evolution of that relationship. And then, but what happens in those different stages? Sometimes people fall out or fall off, for want of a better term, and because the glue has faded to stick, the glue is
Right.
not bonding them together.
So what creates that sort of effect of that glue not being so strong?
Motivation.
Okay.
And it comes back to the craving. For some people, let's look at it this way. There's some people, they meet somebody, they fall in love, and they fall for that person. There's an initial stage of the high, so that's quite compulsive. There's also that stage of them feeling that when the cortisol is released, the hormones, the neurochemicals are not normal at that point, are not their norm,
Yeah.
right? So you got these different chemicals racing through your body. You're having a flight, or literally getting butterflies in your stomach, because at times your body is releasing the same hormones that gives you the flight or fight
Yeah.
or freeze even. Because there's freeze,
That's true.
isn't there?
Actually, I haven't
you
heard
always
of the
forget the
freeze.
freeze, yeah?
Yeah,
but
yeah, the freeze
fight,
one.
flight or freeze syndrome.
Yeah,
Those chemicals are being released in the body. So people are having butterflies. They're literally figuratively high, like, as if they're on cocaine. So they
Right.
can't think straight. What do we say to people when like we look back? You're talking to a friend casually about a relationship. What made you do that? I don't know. How could you, or why did you, or what was it? What made you arrive at that place with that particular person? I was in love. Because it was high. It was like they was intoxicated. Literally intoxicated.
And
They
I'm
couldn't think
sure
straight.
everyone that's watching understands exactly what you're saying right now, because
We've
they've all
been there.
experienced
Everybody's
it
been
at
there.
some point.
Yeah.
But now what do you do when that fades? What do you do when something comes in?
Before we go to when it fades, it returns. It's normal, right? Common. It's not going to stay like that. Because
So we
that's
need
the
to have that
initial-
understanding.
That it's almost like that's nature's way, for want of a better term, of creating. Because we're here to survive as a human species, right? So if we want to look at it just on using that framework, it's like nature's way or the creator's way of creating a spark and these people coming together. That's the initial,
Right.
and it's strong, so it pulls people together. But then there's the relationship that we've learned how to relate to others, parents, our first caregivers, our siblings, and different important people in our life.
Yeah.
Relationships, communication, give and take. That's when that education that took place when in development, from infancy and development, those skills are supposed to take over or
Right.
kick in. And then that's what sustains this unique relationship, which is
So it's not just
physically
the
intimate.
other person, it's how you have been brought up, your influences, your environment also. So yeah, I mean, when psychological developers and gurus do speak about how your childhood affects even your future relationships.
It definitely does.
It
I would agree.
really
I
does.
agree with that school of thought.
It really does.
My training in psychoanalysis was very basic, and I'm more interested in psychoanalysis in particular, like as an autodidactic self-taught
Yeah,
type of
yeah.
thing. But it's meant, we cover some materials at university related to psycho, but more existential, more
Of course.
rational emotive, different schools of psychology.
Absolutely.
But I have to agree with the analysis about this idea of intimacy, and that I know it's quite controversial, Freud's ideas about the Oedipus complex, but there is some.
What's his ideas again? Remind me.
This developmental ideas about children go through certain stages.
Yes.
The oral stage, the anal stage, the genital stage, the latency, and then like the full blown developing that puberty stage where they're actually physically attractive now. But these are, if you look at these as metaphors, they do give us a lot of insight, because a girl, for example, they say that a girl falls in love with her dad, like the guy that she falls
Okay.
for will have certain qualities of her dad.
Qualities.
And depending on the type of healthy relationship she had with her dad,
Right.
or significant male role modeling.
I have heard that before. What about the guys? What do they? Is it with the same, similar with the mum?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly the same. That's a very strong argument. That's why they say that there's certain types of women that often, they're talking popular culture now, not talking any particular ethnicity or
Yeah, this is just general.
Just throwing it out there.
Yeah.
In popular culture, like you'll have men who are attracted to a certain type of, let's say, racy or exciting type of woman, but those are not the women they marry. They say that they marry their mums. They marry their.
Oh my God, that's so
they'll be attracted,
true.
and they may spend a period of time in their life racing around and with exotic and exciting scenarios with a
But do those
particular type of
relationships
females.
last?
No, but check me out. With a particular type.
Right.
But then when they say they're getting married, and you've got a friend, you haven't seen him in years, and you know the kind of women that he may have associated with, that he may have spent time with or been around, and then you see him you go to his wedding and you kind of get to meet his other half, pretty quiet or
Yeah.
just very lovely, but kind of
Not the
homely
normal
and
type.
she kind of reminds me of
It's
his.
so funny
she
you
reminds
say
me of
that.
somebody. She's
Your
like
mom.
just like his mum. Do you know what
I
mean?
have that so often with my clients.
Because that's now wired into the psyche.
Okay,
that
so
security,
they
the
marry.
nurturer.
So they marry someone who they think is going to be the mother
Yeah.
and someone secure, but that's not their ideal for themselves. Realistic.
Safety, somebody to nurture them. But where the complexity could come in is
Yeah.
if that safe bet.
Yes,
right?
safe bet.
If
That's a good one.
She can still represent something that she can get in touch with her racy side. That maybe it's not the norm for everybody to see, but if in the relationship,
Yes.
if that racy side, she
Comes
accesses
out.
that racy side, it's manifesting, then you have.
Then you have the good one.
Yeah.
You just touched on such a very important point, because a lot of people are making decisions on relationships, and this is a very good point for them to understand. And if they are looking for the safety net, fine, but they've got to dig deeper into that personality of the other person to know if that exists, so they can have it all round. And that's what it is. And this is exactly what I wanted to share with everyone to hear, and you just brought it. And the other thing, because I remember you also do your own shows and you've hosted before in many other channels. So you mentioned, I watched one of your programs, and you were talking about the men and the women's mind being different, and the way in which we're wired, for example. And that also needs to be understanding from both sides as to how we think as women and as men, and how the other one thinks.
Yeah.
In order to have that empathy, sympathy, or mercy, or whatever it is, or deeper understanding. So what is your thoughts on that?
No, because I think generally heterosexual men and women, again, neurological information, psychological research suggests, so neurology, that women have more grey matter, white matter, different proportions
Just explain that grey, white matter a bit more.
In terms of, I think it's to do with like the synapse, the connections between brain cells and and the speed of the brain and things of that nature.
So this exists in our mind.
Now,
I'm just trying to.
Before we get to the mind, which doesn't exist in time and space, just the brain alone.
The brain, okay, fine. The brain,
physical
yes.
brain of the male and the female is different.
Right.
Then we've got testosterone levels. Then we've got estrogen levels in the body of the male
So
and
what's
female.
that grey and white matter you were talking about?
So I'm saying that's to do with the brain connections, the speed of how the brain works, the way the brain physically operates in terms of neurochemicals.
Right.
It's just different. You know what I mean? Like in terms
What
of
is the difference?
To go into it off the top of the dome will be difficult to get quite precise.
Right.
But they do differ significantly.
Okay.
But we've got chemicals, other chemicals, not brain chemicals now, bodily chemicals, testosterone.
Right.
We've got estrogen. So men and women are physically different and anatomically, but also in terms of brain chemical.
Brain chemical, right.
They don't necessarily, I don't say any suggest that one is better than the other.
It's just
it
different, like you said.
They're very different.
Yeah.
And tapping into that difference is healthy, and it allows you to access more if you don't make it a point of conflict. A good example, they use this in the business world, right? They have business coaching, business training.
Yes.
Now they've done work in certain companies, and they found out that when they give certain tests, that the men may outscore the women in certain
areas.
Tasks, overall. But there's certain sections of the test that the men consistently perform poorly at, and the women always get right.
On top.
So what does that mean? It doesn't mean that the men are better than women. It means that you need a team with men and women in a team, because somebody's going to see the blind spot, somebody's going to excel in this area, somebody's going to excel in that area.
Yeah.
And if you're not competing against each other, which I think that popular culture has kind of
Yes, the competition,
men and women,
yeah,
men and
yeah,
women against
yeah.
each
Or
other.
trying to be equal,
Yeah.
or bring that similarity closer.
I think that we can have equity in society between men and women, and we can have an appreciation. There is sexism in society, but we can have an appreciation and you know, rights in terms of legality and social inclusion and acceptance of things of this nature. I think we can have that without it being competitive.
Okay.
Because,
yes. And I think it's really important to have that mindset, what you've just said about that competitiveness, even in a romantic couple relationship, because they need to know that each other brings something, and together, working together as a team is what makes that relationship grow.
Exactly. If you're working on us, this is what I bring to the table. But and again, in the relationships, in the marriages, there's a level of self-awareness, or there's a quest and a self-awareness that the individual needs to go through before they even think about getting involved in a serious relationship, stroke marriage.
But then sometimes, those changes and those thoughts even happen while they're in a relationship or after years of being in a relationship.
It's continuous.
Yes, it is continuous.
I'm not
Values
saying
change.
there's not necessarily an end point in self-awareness, but what I mean is that
absolutely. But those values in an individual change.
To give the relationship a better chance.
A fighting chance.
Yeah, to give it a fighting chance, a better chance, it's going to be enhanced by my self-awareness of what I bring to the table.
Absolutely.
What I can deliver, what I feel like, I'm aware of my shortcomings, my fault lines, my difficulties, my strong points. If I have a better appreciation of that, and I meet somebody likewise, as well as knowing their personality and get to know their personality over time and not rushing. And they call it courting, right? Because people are looking, like in court, you look for evidence. So when you're courting, you're looking for
But people
clues.
don't understand that word courting. You see, just even what you just said about what I bring to the table, a lot of people, when they're looking in relationships, what can he or she give me? What am I looking for in the other person? Everyone's looking outside themselves. I want to bring it in and home it in as to, you want a good relationship, you want everything to be in a particular way, you have to be it first. And you've got to know first, and your self-awareness is so important. And that courting idea is like, oh, someone else is gonna take care of you, and this guy's gonna either do something for you. No, it's about a shared response and receiving differently and bringing something each one to the court.
I mean, because it's understandable. People will say, well, this is what I want out of a relationship. This is what I need.
No, but that's not the initial thing.
It's great that people know what their needs and their wants are.
Absolutely.
However, like you said, if you're not really clear about what you bring to the table, well, why would somebody? Why you? Why does anybody want to invest in you?
Exactly.
What's special about you? Everybody's special, but what is special about you?
Absolutely.
So you need to know that.
And even when you're in that relationship, people I find when they're having issues, they're trying to draw the other partner in by setting these rules. And the other partner is obviously staying there with these rules because, either for finance or society or whatever cultural reasons that they're in that relationship, but they're being forced by these rules to stay in that relationship instead of, again, unraveling what is the deeper issue that I have, and I have made accountable and bring that responsibility into it. It's always the other person, it's always the blame, it's always looking outside oneself. So I think people need to really understand this, because it's really powerful to be in a good relationship, and it is doable.
It's
That's what I'm trying to say.
It's an asset, but relationships are very hard, and you can see
I would say it's not hard. I would say it's challenging. It can be overcome.
No, but there's difficulty, there's challenge,
there's difficulty,
there's problem solving, there's solutions that need to come to the fore. So it's an opportunity to grow.
Exactly.
But I look at society and I say, in the past, there was more of a taboo for you not to be married, for example. Not for you to be in some kind of committed relationship, long term, and people had a frown, people browsing it. It was in the unspoken, but there was like something wrong with you, or
well, it still exists in certain cultures.
In certain cultures, it does exist, but in mainstream society, it's less and less.
It is getting
of a taboo.
less.
And what's the motivation
now to be married?
Yeah, do you see where I'm coming from?
Yeah,
because
absolutely.
We're, as human beings, we're influenced by social pressure, economic pressure, societal. There's all these different pressures that or influences, right? That impact our behavior. Not just intuitively, or internally, but externally
Externally,
as well.
of course.
Right? There's these external locus of evaluation, the external things, as well as our own internal drives and motivations, and they kind of meet somewhere and play out in a person's life. So as a society changes, then behavior changes.
Yeah,
right?
the
Because
needs and the
people get
wants
married, and
change.
people say, well, if you look at the internet and there's all these models of perfection and all these fake airbrushed images, a lot of men are falling in love with the fake airbrush image and the screen, and they're saying, well, if I can live in a social world where there is less kind of responsibility or less consequence, but I can still have some of the benefits of an intimate relationship, then what is driving people to get married? And human beings will always come together, but that is exactly the context of how that happens.
Yes.
Will evolve and will change over time.
How do you think?
I think that things work in a cycle.
Yeah, that's true.
Because things work in a cycle.
Yeah, you're right.
I can't see on the horizon, but I feel like with the advent of social media and the availability and the oversaturation of images and women and porn even.
Yeah.
I'm anticipating like a backlash or some kind of reaction where people go back. There's a trend towards conservatism. Maybe
Because
not like the old days.
I know what
but
you mean.
A new wave.
To find that safe, secure place again.
Yeah.
That's what it is, because everyone's going to try things out for generations, and then they're going to go back and look. Yeah, like you're so true. Everything does work in cycles, and we always say that trends come back, and it's the same with lifestyle.
Yeah.
Exactly the same with lifestyle, and that's so true. And it's just amazing that we've touched on so many things right here, and it's so important for everyone to understand that yes, relationships are hard work.
The love. I would say for anybody out there, love languages is a beautiful way of understanding like the deeper level of communication in an intimate relationship.
Yeah.
And I would also say it always helps if you understand where the person's come from, not to be judgmental, but to
different perspectives.
You know how a person was brought up.
Yeah.
You see their environment, the significant people that influence them coming up, what type of relationship they have with those people. It's not going to tell you the whole story, but it's going to let you know, give you more of a better. It's going to give you a better picture of what you're signing yourself up
We
for.
all need to be psychotherapists then, right? We all need to know psychology. I think you don't have to do a course. Nowadays, everything's available. You can read up on this stuff, and I think you need to read up on human behavior. We need to read up on our mind and our brain and how it works, just as an extracurricular activity.
Yeah, just as fun, just as pop culture.
Absolutely.
Why not check out attachment theory?
Yes. Oh my God.
Attachment theory. How did somebody attach with their significant
other
caregiver? Sick, and then because that may be played out in a relationship. That's one school of thought as well.
That's
so you have
true.
Secure attachment. You were raised in a certain environment where the person felt secure. They could experiment. They could leave the mother's kind of clutches of the mum and experiment, but at the same time look back and have a decent relationship with the mum. This is like the kind of ideal, but then you have the insecure attachment, the anxious, the avoidant attachment. These type of things can play out when people get older, because you're looking in a relationship, you're looking for or like autonomy and unity. You're trying to strike a balance, because if in a relationship you're too what's the word I'm looking for? You don't have your own identity anymore. You lose your identity, lose yourself in the relationship. That's dangerous. That's unhealthy. You can't cope without the other person. And I don't mean I can't live without a loving way. I mean like
I've seen couples like that. They do.
Yeah, that's not healthy. But at the same time, in a relationship, if you're too let's say
needy,
the opposite. The other extreme is if you're too independent.
Okay, yes, of course, and especially as women, by the way, I find that very difficult now, because a lot of professional women are coming up, who are very high-powered. And it's a new phase where they are independent and not actually seeking that man or that support financially, for example, or anything, because these are the reasons why before relationships even happened more, because it was a way out to extend your status, your name and all of that, and then it was love, and then relationships is changed and evolved over that time. So now we have to realize that with independent women, how do they evolve in relationships, and how do men receive that? Not everyone's going to also think that
is a really challenge, though, because the data says that women don't generally marry down.
Yeah.
And women tend to marry across.
Absolutely,
And women
or
tend
up.
to marry up, but they don't really marry down. But men have no problem being the director
Yes.
of a blue chip company, but saying that girl in Iceland on the till, she looks stunning. I'm going back to see if I can get a number and take her for a coffee.
So you think it's both ways?
Hey?
Do you think it's both ways?
No, I'm saying that men are quite the opposite. Men don't have a problem. I'm saying
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, that's true.
So
But
that's something to
yeah.
navigate. That's something
And
to
I
navigate.
find that a lot of women are finding it hard. They're like, they don't even match me. That's the issue.
Yeah.
They don't even match me
Yeah.
in any way.
Yeah.
So, these high-powered women are finding it quite testing. Men need to step up, right?
Yeah, men need to step up. But there's always other things that men bring to the table, like intellect and personality.
Of course, but for the male ego,
But there's always a status.
Yes,
There's a status
it
issue
is,
that needs to be.
exactly.
I wouldn't say resolved, but explored. I don't know if it can be resolved, but it can definitely be explored.
Definitely. No, I mean, I think we brought so much insight into this conversation. And I'm so privileged to have you sitting with me today. I thank you
fun.
so much.
It's a pleasure.
You've given
It's been
us
a
so
pleasure.
much, awareness, and I think that the audience is going to find this extremely valuable. I certainly have. And thank you so much for being with me
Really
today.
appreciate it. I'm
really
humbled.
appreciate
I'm humbled.
it.
Thank you so
Really
much
do.
for having me.
Thank you so much for watching Coach Talk, and we will be back with another episode. Bye.